Hello and welcome to Connecting Jewish Grandparents, the Grand Plan podcast. I'm thrilled that you're here with me today. Now, often I start by sharing a tidbit, like just a little bit about somebody that I'm working with on their grandparenting journey, on leaving their legacy and the struggles along the way. But today, I've got a far more complicated family to talk about, and they're nobody that I have the opportunity to coach. Today we're going to look at this week's Torah portion, Toldot, or Toldos, which is the Torah's first deep dive into family dynamics. And along that journey, we'll go into your family dynamics, right? How the Torah does it, and how you do it. And hopefully, ideally, we're always learning from the Torah. So at the end, you'll be able to take a lot, hopefully, away for what you can do better in your home. All right, so we're really looking at the family of Yaakov or Yitzchak and Rivkah, and all of the first family through the lenses of family of origin. If you're not familiar with the idea of family of origin, everybody comes from a family, and that family that they come from, that's the foundation of where they learn so much, and it really shapes how we communicate and parent and how we relate to our adult children and our grandchildren, but it's everything. How we relate to money, how we relate to sex, how we relate to religion, how we relate to other people, like really on every single topic you can come up with, we've learned something from our family of origin and we carry it with us. So today, I want us together to be able to understand these patterns that come from our original homes. And with the understanding of those patterns, that we're able to create healthier connections today. All right. So we're going to have to unpack a lot of layers, and really, even today, the end of today's episode, we'll still just be scratching the surface of family of origin and how that affects you. It's something that we could do and will do a lot more work in one-on-one coaching, which I encourage you to do. So you can hop on down to the show notes and get the details on doing some private coaching. All right. What is the family of origin theory? The basic definition is that the family system that raised you and influenced your emotional development. There are many things that do, but really the unshakable piece is the home that you return to throughout your childhood, the place you learned everything. I gave a few examples before, but I didn't mention communication style or conflict patterns or emotional roles in the family. And each of those is enormous. Each of those could be unpacked forever. Think about communication styles, just that alone. The body language from joy or conflict. But understand that these patterns feel normal to us. It's what we've always done, it's what we saw, it's what we do. And we kind of think it's what everybody should do. But that's not necessarily true. And it's not necessarily true to our children and their spouses and their children. So, how does our family of origin affect our adult relationships? I feel like I'm covering a lot of ground very quickly, and you see why this is so much. But let's just think about as grandparents, how does family of origin, that which we gave to our children, now we're not even thinking about what we got from our parents, though that is obviously a huge part of it. But what does it mean for your children? We tend to parent and relate to our adult children in the ways we learned from our own parents. We know what anger looks like because we saw it. We know what nurturing looks like because we saw it, but we're only really able to pass on what we know and we know well. So this can cause tension when we assume that familiarity, expectations, or boundaries, because that's what we know, but it doesn't match their needs. And you probably ran into this when they were little humans, when you were the parent and they were the small children. And when you were living in the same house, it was easier to impact them with what you felt and what you did. First of all, because you were able to see them in their day-to-day life. And so you knew what they needed. You were able to really be intuitive and aware, but also because they knew you and your system only. But now that they've branched out in the world, it is harder to find that connection. Now we add in a whole nother element of when your children are now adults and now married. So what does it mean with their spouse, with your children-in-laws, those children who are not children but adults? The spouse of your children comes with their own family of origin patterns, which might be radically different from yours. And even if it's only different in finite ways, those small differences can feel enormous and incredibly challenging. What feels comfortable to us might feel devastating to them, and vice versa. Just like the smallest example, right? Dessert. If you have a family that one family dessert is like a special treat and it's only for this, and one family, every meal just falls with dessert. And of course, you should end with something sweet. Now, both of those are so minor. But then, is it? It's every meal. How do you conclude a meal? What goes in your mouth at the end of the meal? No, but this is really important to me to have dessert. No, it's a special thing. We keep special things special. And dessert is, you would think, seemingly minor, but it could turn into enormous fights. So you have to really approach those differences with curiosity instead of assuming, no, this is what dessert might be or must be. It's more of, oh, that's interesting. You being curious, can you tell me more about that? Trying to understand their perspective. All right. And now, so we've upped the ante over and over again. Your own or family of origin, what you think should be, how you pass it on to your children. Then you have your child's spouse. And now you have, well, we're always here to talk about your grandchildren. Grandparents, you, the grandparent, naturally wants to offer love and guidance and tradition. It's such a gift that you get to do that. And I'm so joyous for you that you do. But the family systems of their parents influence the access and the routines and the emotional openness. You cannot just come in being exactly who you want to be, carrying everything you carry into their home. You have to come in understanding these systems. And when you do, that's when the connection can be so strong. Again, I'm just scratching the surface of what happens in family of origin. I want to discuss it more with you in coaching, but now we're going to take it into another family and look at how it goes. The family of our great, 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 great grandparents. With Abraham and Sarah, we don't learn that much in the Torah, and their families of origin are not that different. But last week, in Chayei Sarah, we bring Rivkah into the picture, and Rivkah's home is very different than Yitzchak's home. Rivkah, we get a sampling of it last week. Her home is marked by deceit and manipulation and emotional distance. We don't even know who her mother is, and her mother might not have been the one driving it. Like, we don't have a name for her. She's an unknown entity in the Torah. These things sometimes keep me up at night. Who was Rivkah's mother? But we do know her father, Betuel, and he is not an honest individual. And we know her brother Lavan, and we will get to find out in coming weeks about all of the dishonesty that Lavan carries, which he again got from his family of origin that he learned in Betuel's home. Okay, what else do we know about Rivka? Oh, we know that she herself is a generous individual. We know that from the camels that she fed last week. But we really understand in this week's parasha her skill in navigating complex relationships. And where does that originate? It must have been, presumably, from navigating the relationship with her brother and her father. And so from this foundation, she takes active leadership in her household because she learned how to read people and take action, right? We see that last week. However old you want to imagine her being at the well, she jumps to take action and to offer and to guide and to tell people what they should do. And we could say, well, this is good for Yitzchak. It's a good match for him. But who is Yitzchak? He grew up in a home marked by emunah and listening and probably some trauma from the Akedah, right? We don't find out a whole lot more about who he is after that major moment. Like he goes on to get married. There's just a lot of quiet. There's also the question of who it was to have Avraham and Sarah as his parents. If you move before the Akedah, who was he? He models their strength, stability, internal processing. And these traits shape how he parents and how he approaches conflict. I see him as pretty hands off, and I don't know. We can't know really if that was something that he learned from his parents, if Abraham and Sarah were kind of more hands off, or if that was a consequence of the Akedah. There's a lot of questions. But when we bring these two people together, Rivka and Yitzchak, they love each other, but they do not have the same communication style. Rashi says that when they are infertile for 20 years and they're both standing in the corner and praying to Hashem, they're standing in opposite corners. They can't stand together in prayer because they are so different in the way they communicate. So they're in the same physical space, but not in the same emotional space, not looking in the same direction. And without looking in that same direction of following your own family of origin, well, what's going to happen when they have twins that are also so markedly different? They've got two parents that are repeating their family of origin. Yaakov absorbs Rivka's emotional intelligence and caution, and Eisav absorbs some of Rivka's cunning, and he gets Yaakov's decisiveness and physicality, and the family system shapes the dynamic between them far more than any single event. So when Rivka says, Yaakov, this is what we're going to do. We're going to trick your father. We're going to tell him that you're Eisav. And Yaakov embraces that and follows that. And Rivka shows her true family of origin colors. And Yitzchak trusts, like Abraham trusts. Who would try to trick me? Hakol kol Yaakov. The voice is the voice of Yaakov. Aval yadai midei Eisav. But the hands are the hands of Eisav. I trust you. We'll get to continue the story, the struggle, how the family of origin and so much more plays out in the upcoming weeks. But where does it put you? What does it mean for you today, right? We are not Abraham or Yitzchak or Yaakov. We're not the Imaot or the Avot. But you do have a family of origin, and we can take it all the way back to the original family. But you don't need to repeat the patterns you grew up with, and you need to be aware of that. Be aware of the pattern and be aware of the fact that you do not have to repeat the pattern. This takes an enormous amount of work. I'm not saying that it's an easy thing, but it's something you have the power to do. So be aware of it. And be curious. Be curious in asking your adult children what they need, not just assume that you know. They have moved past your home. They're still from your family of origin, but be curious and ask them what they mean. Now that you are aware that you can be different and you've or know what they need because you've asked them, you need to be flexible. You need to adapt the family culture that your children and their spouse have created for your grandchildren. Because only when you understand your own story and you understand that their story and their lives are different, you will show up with the compassion that you need to have meaningful connections. Got all that? Because none of this is easy. And yet, it's completely crucial. I could keep talking for a very long time because there's so much to say on this, but I want to package it up for you with some takeaways. Before engaging, you're going to pause and you're going to ask yourself, this thing I'm about to do or say to my children or my grandchildren, is this, or my spouse, is this coming from my family of origin? Is it who I want to be right now? You have to pause. That's already enormously hard. And then really ask yourself, what is motivating this behavior? Is it family of origin? Do I need to be carrying it with me? Or can I let it go? That's step one, but that can take more work than is imaginable. I know this. Next, notice when something your child or their spouse does that feels wrong to you because it's unfamiliar. But approach it with curiosity and realize that it is not wrong. It is unfamiliar to you right now. And with curiosity, you can come to understand what is different, what they are bringing. And how do you make that connection when it's different? You ask thoughtful questions. We talked about that a few episodes ago. The questions that you can ask, the thoughtful questions. And then offer love in the way they can receive it, which is likely to be different than your family of origin method of love. When we start back with our original family of our Avot and Imaot, we see in Toldot, family patterns run deep. They are complicated. They are difficult, but they are not our destiny. Grandparents can be powerful agents of emotional repair and connection and blessing, but that's not straightforward or easy, and you have to put in the intentional planning, the grand planning. And that's where I want to work with you in the coaching, in the guiding, in making it through your family of origin, but those patterns and so much more in living this moment in joyous connections and leaving the joyous Jewish legacy you never even imagined you could be transmitting. I mentioned the questions. That asking questions is valuable in the show notes. There are 18 conversation topic questions to be asking your grandchildren. There's the information for coaching, and there's so much more. I want to be connecting with you. I want to have the opportunity to do this for you and with you. So please reach out. Have a wonderful week.